How are you doing?
One of you give me a nod to start.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
I'm
not saying.
No, we are ready to roll now.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. It is, well, it's 2 minutes past 2 now, so we can make a start. We've got sufficient numbers, and as others come along, they can join us. We'll read out a brief statement first. Familiar with it. Anyway, here we go. Welcome to the Gower AONB Partnership Steering Group, which has been held under the Local Authorities Coronavirus Meetings Wales Regulations 2000.
That's all right, Roger. We'll see if we can get on.
I'd like to manage expectations from the outset and highlight that there may be some glitches in this meeting. However, please be assured that we will learn from them and keep striving towards a seamless process. I'm also conscious that a number of the participants may have issues with bandwidth and would suggest that they turn off the videos should that become an issue. This meeting is being broadcast live so that members of the public can experience. So please ensure that you all mute your mics and remember to unmute them when you are called to speak. We will now call up the name of those present. Can you please repeat your name?
Okay, Councillor Parkchild.
Present.
Mark.
Councillor Paxton Hood Williams.
Paxton.
Councillor Paxton Hood Williams.
Sorry, I didn't realise you did, so yes, present. My apologies.
Okay.
Councillor Linda James.
Present.
Councillor Andrew Stevens.
Present.
Roger Button. John France. Steve Hurd. Sue Hill.
Present.
Thank you.
Hamish Osborne. Barbara Pack. Paul Thornton.
Barbara's just trying to sign in. I'm just trying to get her on now.
Paul Thornton.
Yeah, present.
Then officers Chris Linley.
Present, yeah, thank you.
Mike Scott.
Present.
Paul Mellor.
Present.
And I'm Jeremy Hodges.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, then, and then Sophie, we'll move on towards the agenda. Just in case anyone's not too familiar with working on Microsoft Teams, you click on the center of the screen, you see the camera there. You can switch that off if you don't want to be photographed there. The mic is next alongside it. So if you can make sure that you are muted, and then when you want to speak, you can raise your hand, unmute your mic, speak, and then please click on the hand sign against it, where you take yourself off there. And everyone ready to go, yeah? So, other than that, the first item is, apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor John Curtis, James Chambers, Gordon Howe, Phil Jenkins, and Paul Tucker.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. Item 2 is, are there any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests? Anyone? No? Okay, thank you. Item 3 is to approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the previous meeting. So that's find out on page 1, 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, and page 6. 70 board members through records.
Propose. I move.
And that's been seconded by the. Okay. All right. Next item 4 is the Gower AONB management plan update from Chris. Do you have anything to add to your?
No, I don't have anything to add there. Can I just add, just say, just regarding Barbara, I've not been able to get her onto the meeting today. I think it might be because she has a Hotmail address, which I think is something that is one of the email addresses that tend to be declined. So if we can record Barbara's apologies, and I'll follow up with Barbara after the meeting to see if we can get something sorted out.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
So no, turning back to the agenda item, I haven't got anything to add on there. Obviously, yeah, we met back in January last time. We were hoping to meet again before lockdown. Obviously, hasn't happened, and I've revised the timetable that we had proposed at the previous meeting in light of the current restrictions.
Yes, and thanks for bringing us up to speed here as well. Hopefully we can get this rolling again. Lockdown is over. Hopefully ASAP. Anyone got any questions for Chris or? No. No. Okay. Right. Thank you. Over to Chris again for item 5. That's government funding and National Landscape Partnership. Again, Chris, that's page 10 and 11 for everyone. Want to add?
So yeah, this is an update from the previous meeting where we talked about the National Landscape Partnership. Again, because of the restrictions, things have been delayed on that, but as well as the proposal for there being a National Landscape Partnership, this is now going to be chaired by, the partnership team is going to be supported by Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority.
Yeah.
So there's details in there.
Yeah.
But the other thing really to point out is the good news that allied to the Landscape Partnership, Welsh Government have identified some capital funding projects for capital projects within national parks and AONBs, and we've been fortunate to secure 135,000 of capital funding to those 3 projects.
Yeah, indeed, some good news in there for us.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. Anyone got any comments or questions? Paxton?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question, really, Chris, in that sense. Obviously, you're talking about the Clyde Valley Country Park, capital works and improvements. What have we got planned for that, if anything, at this point in time?
We need to identify the specifics, but certainly we want to concentrate on some of the access routes. You're bearing in mind that particularly the amount of the increase in visitors to Country Park, particularly since lockdown. Some of the access infrastructure needs some work on it. So I know if Barbara have been able to make it, there's some sections and I think there's a bridge on the Mumbles Way which goes through Clyde Valley that needs some urgent work. So we're looking at access improvements that are off the right-of-way network, because my understanding is Christdale has some secured some other funding for the right-of-way network. But we'll also be looking at some heritage improvements, safeguarding some of the heritage features there, and some interpretation. But it's the total we've been awarded is 100,000. It needs to be spent in this financial year. So we're keen to get a prioritised list of the most urgent ones as soon as we can.
So you're going to spend £100,000 on that project and the 30 other balance of 35 on the 2 other projects, is it?
No, we've had a total of 135.
Yeah.
Allocated to the AONB, there'll be 100,000 specifically for Klein.
No, sorry, I think that's what I was asking basically.
Yeah, sorry, and 5,000 for the management tools and 30,000 for the Bishopswood Local Nature Reserve.
Okay, fine. As you say, it's good news, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Mark, Charlie?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's got the figures, but I imagine there's been an absolutely massive increase in use of Clyde Valley in recent months. And just in my experience, I've never seen it anything like as busy as it is now. So I imagine we need to improve access and make sure that we're protecting some of the features there as well. Because otherwise people are just going to go any which way they choose through Clyde Valley. I mean, it's welcome to see a huge use, but we need to be spending this money wisely to protect the area. And it's because Clyde Valley is inside and outside the AONB. Is this money solely for use within the AONB? It would seem illogical in one sense. You should treat the whole place the same, but I'm just asking because it's come as AONB money.
Yes, you're right. It has come as AONB money, but I think the intention is that we need to approach the management of Klein as a country park as a whole. So yeah, it would be irrational to fund lots of works just on the west side of the valley and not worry about the rest.
No, there's not a lot of it in the AONB as such as I understand it anyway, Chris, is there?
Yes, I would say it's roughly half and half,
Okay.
because there's the boundary of the valley is the cycle track.
Right. Certainly there's been a lot of traffic there, as Mark was saying, and there are problems in keeping pedestrians and cyclists separate, but that's a problem I guess we got everywhere anyway in that sense.
Correct. Okay, anyone else wish to speak? No?
No, sorry, Paul, I would echo what Paxton just said. At the busiest times, there is effectively a conflict between pedestrians and cyclists on that track. If any of this money could be used to separate them out in some way, that would be brilliant, but we've only got a certain amount of money.
Yep. True enough. Okay, so I can see Paul there. Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Just to follow up on Councillor's comments there, we've been speaking to highways on particularly their active travel officers in relation to Clyne. They want to create some additional routes through Clyne, but they also recognise, as we all do, the issue of conflict in there, and it's an issue as well of managing behaviours, in particular the cyclists who are racing along there, and I think they're looking at perhaps introducing some signage, maybe painted on the ground, in terms of staying safe, taking care and respecting other users on the path, because there's obviously the cyclists, pedestrians, and there's a number of bridleways in there as well. So there's a whole issue around educating users of the park and the increase in numbers. But I think we certainly back up, and we haven't got the figures, the significant increase in use. It's been discovered, and it'll continue to be by people who lived on the doorstep and didn't perhaps appreciate it was there, and will continue to use it as restrictions are eased.
Mark, did you want to come back in?
No, sorry, Paul.
All right, sorry. Oh, I thought I saw you put your hand up again. Sorry, apologies. Okay, anyone else? Can I see? No. Okay, thanks. Well, you can see the report, folks, and it does make some good news for us. Hopefully, we can see some progress there then, when everything again is back to normal. And Okay, moving on to item 6 then, is the Gower AONB design guide and the revision of supplementary planning guidance. And Mike, that's yours. Anything to add? Could you unmute your mic, please? Mike?
Sorry, I'll learn. It looks as though we'll be able to start the consultation process on that by September, October, which means that we should get that finalised and hopefully off to council and committee by the end of the calendar year, which means that we can then finalise all of that before the end of the financial year. So those dates are in the report. The reason that's important is that once that design guide is completed and we have that as SPG, we can go back to Dark Skies International and hopefully we can get the issue with the Dark Sky community approved and we can get that in place.
And that'll be some great move forward, isn't it?
It will.
Yeah, indeed. Look forward to that. Anyone want to speak? No? Sure. Okay. Well, thank you, Mike, for the report. Much appreciated.
No worries.
Right. Cheers. And it's you again now. Is the Sustainable Development Fund on the next page,
Yes.
13. But there's a bit of good news come through there as well.
Yes, indeed. This year we had £100,000 from Welsh Government for the SDF budget. That's twice what it usually is. We've currently got 7 projects on, a couple more coming through and 2 or actually now possibly 3 in the pipeline. We have committed quite a lot of the funds already, but as you can see, we've got another 21,500 still on. Sorry, no, we haven't. We have 56,000 currently uncommitted. So we've still got a fair amount of grant funds to get out. That's all in hand. The date of the next SDF panel meeting is now the 13th of July.
Yeah. 2 weeks.
Indeed.
Yeah. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mike? No? Well, okay. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, has Paxton got a question?
Oh, sorry, Paxton, didn't see that. Paxton. Can you unmute the mic?
Sorry, my apologies. I must remember to do that. What I was asking really is basically, have you still got the 56,000 available for projects, or is it?
Some of that will be required if those 2 that we're considering on the 13th are approved. That'll come down a bit, but we do still have a small amount of uncommitted funds, if you follow.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
If you have a possible project, Paxton, come and have a word with me and I'll see whether we can squeeze it all in.
I'll have to put my thinking cap on, is what it amounts to.
Ah.
Right, let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? No? Right, we could remove your hand there, please, Paxton. And off we go to item 8, which is Clyne Valley Country Park again. That's page 15. How to add to that, Chris?
Yeah, so it's almost a continuation of just the discussion we just had, really. But really, I just wanted to highlight to the partnership, in general terms, we've been looking for some months now about council's overall approach to the management of the country park. And I've just tried to give the sort of briefest context in that paper, and what is very clear is that there's several parts of the council that are responsible in some shape or form to some element of management in the country park, but there isn't any coherent objectives or management strategy to the area as a whole. The nearest we have as a council is the local development plan policy, specific one there about identifying it as a country park and managing it as a country park, but it's very lacking in detail. So this has come to the fore, particularly over the past few months during lockdown, where we've had issues relating to damage, and I'm talking about in the wider area of Clyde Valley, not just specifically the country park, but we've had damage to a scheduled monument and damage to Calais Marsh Local Nature Reserve from people doing unauthorised digging of off-road bike tracks. Obviously, there's any number of sort of permissive routes in the area that we're encouraging people to walk on and use, but there's no management of those and no inspection of those. When you add in all the other issues around, we've got a historic landfill there with potential management implications and liabilities for the council. So I think we get a bit of feedback there. I don't know if anybody else is.
Somebody got their mic. Yeah.
So I think, right, I'll try again. So I think what we're trying to do is make sure there's some sort of coherent overall approach to the management of Clyde Valley. So we're trying to draw things together to help that.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, that would make sense. All right. Anyone else? So Paxton, you had your hand up, or?
Yes, I put my hand up again. I'm sorry, Chairman, but
yeah.
As far as the off-the cycle track, if you see what I mean, is concerned, I understand the police have got a grip on that now, Chris, and they know the chap was responsible for a lot of that, and they've got that contact. So that's been picked up and should be looked after in terms of making sure that there's no further intrusion there in that sense, I guess. So that's good news. But in terms of the countryside, the park itself, have we got a responsibility, same as we have with the AONB, in terms of a management plan of that sort of nature, or should we have one, in fact? That's a general question, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we should have, and we don't. So when I track back through the history of the country park, the responsibility on the council is in that basically it's a power to provide a country park, so rather than a designation like the AONB. But we do have a policy in place saying we want it managed as a country park, but I think there needs to be a better and more detailed expression of what actually that means. So, what are the features? What are we encouraging people to do there? What are we encouraging them not to do there? And have something, some sort of framework there to help us manage it better.
Okay, fine. Something we need to think about. Something we'll need to think about, Chairman.
Yeah, correct. I agree. Mark and then Hamish. I'll mute your mic, Mark. Okay,
Yes, sorry. Chris covered a lot of it there, but yeah, I mean, to manage as a country park, well, what exactly does that mean? Clearly, it's not a park in the sense of Singleton Park, so it must be something different. And it seems to imply to me a significant amount of encouraging access. It's a facility for people. And whilst I support that, I think we need to make sure that in the plan there is sufficient protection of and enhancement of the natural environment as well within that, because I know in the past we've done rhododendron work in there and stuff like that. And I think the plan for the park needs to be about sustaining the natural environment in there, as well as allowing whatever access is deemed suitable. It is good that people have started using it a lot more than they have, but that brings its own problems. So it is over time that we had a proper plan for the place. I think it's one of the biggest wood. Swansea's got more wood within the city, wood and trees within the city boundary than most cities, and almost any city. We should be proud of that, but we should know how to use it and manage it as well.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Mark. Hamish?
Hi, yeah, thanks. I think it's really good that Chris has raised that, and we've been talking about it for a while, but NRW is doing some work on certain issues around Clyne Valley, including the River Clyne, which will need constant attention in terms of water quality. We've also got interest on a number of key species, including bats. We'd like to work on several aspects of Clyne Valley that are sort of appear in our area statement. So I'd like to stay involved, and if you think of setting up a group to work on, and then let me know, because I think I'd like to put someone on that if that's of interest. So we're definitely interested in collaborating on anything Clyne related.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. So we look forward to that. Anyone else want to speak? No? Okay, it's all right. We'll see some way forward on that one. Thank you. Right, and then Steve, item 9, parking on Kevin Bryn.
Hello, gents. How are we?
Are you okay?
Not bad. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. For some reason, I didn't connect.
A lot of us had that problem today.
And I'm on a little iPhone, so I've got sort of like 2 pictures of nothing. I hope you can see me anyway.
Yeah.
The reason I brought this up was I've been contacted by, and actually now an awful lot of residents regarding the parking and the situation closing off the parking at the top of Kevin Bryn. Virtually to a man, they've all been very much in support of it. The queries they've all got now is what happens next. We have been having issues with people moving the stones across, but the bigger trouble we've got now is that people are now parking, either driving over the bund or actually parking just behind the white line on a small part of the verge. And really to bring this up is to see what we can now do.
Okay. So, have there been any suggestions, Steve, or is it?
There've been suggestions, but previously we had a plan worked out.
Yeah.
One of the things I think needs to be done is that we need to extend the bund and replace the bund. Well, part of which, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I think we'd actually had discussed that within the original plan that we discussed and agreed. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry, Steve, I missed most of what you said. My connection dropped out. But yes, effectively the plan that we have at the moment is for a boulder shape, a crescent shape of boulders around the area where people park now, a length of bunding to either side of that, along the north side of the highway to prevent people going around the back of the boulders, and also a proposed clearway from the roughly from the outskirts of Reynoldston village right the way across the common down to the cattle grid at Killerbean. And so a clear way would make it illegal for cars to park along the side of the highway if they're causing an obstruction. But if they're able to come off the highway, i.e. where we're allowing them to park, that is still legal.
See, that's part of the problem we've got now. What people are doing, you all know where this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, we've got a white line that runs along the edge of the road. Then we have a small space, and then we have a bund. What they're doing is parking off the white line on the verge between there and the bund. So there's enough room to park your car off the road on that bund. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so, and that's hopefully what the proposals will solve is restoring that bund to a level where they're not able to make that manoeuvre. They have to.
Right. Actually, it won't, because what's happening? What we were doing previously was to raise the bund, wasn't it? So they can't get up and over it.
Yeah, or park on it.
Right. The problem is now we're going to have to extend the bund more towards the road, because they're not actually parking on the bund; they're parking on the gap between the road and the bund.
Well, yeah, the position of the bund is something we can sort out in the detail of the proposal, exactly where. But my expectation would be that it would be such that it would prevent them from doing that.
Yeah. The other thing that's happening now is that people are parking as in fairness, I think we brought up at the time, certainly I know I brought it up, was that they're actually now parking in other places. One of the most common areas is down where the old pumping station used to be, on the corner that runs down towards Broadpool. Just on the right-hand side.
Yes, I know where you mean. Yeah.
And the other problem is that they're actually further down, say halfway between the old pump house and the existing crescent. We're going to have to extend the bund further down there because they're just driving up and over the bund. And that's much further than where it was previously.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were preparing this particular proposal on the basis that we would expect there to be implications, and we would have to manage those afterwards. But I think at the moment, we've got a plan that our highways colleagues are comfortable with, we're reasonably comfortable with, and the commoners and Somerset Trust are prepared to accept. And I think if we can get that first piece of the puzzle around managing parking around the area, that would be great. There'll be other implications as well, particularly around what's happening at Rendleston Village as well.
Yes, that's right. Because the other thing is these implications that we were expecting to happen much later, because of the situation we're in, they've actually shown their hand, if you like, and showing us exactly what they're going to be doing now.
Yeah.
So really, we should be probably discussing it much sooner than we were initially anticipating doing so.
Yeah. So, sorry, Chris, I see you back. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I'm dipping in and out because of the quality of the signal. I think what we need to see is what happens when we have that designed solution in place, because if people are able to come off road in the area as we've proposed, will that mean that people no longer try and park in those other places?
No, Chris, it means the exact opposite. They will park in the other place.
Yes, that's common sense. Yeah.
But only if they're not able to park up the top
No,
because no capacity.
no, I can't agree with that, because what's actually, well, I can agree with what you just said, actually, because we've cut the capacity of that crescent parking space lower. So that's reduced the amount of cars that can park there. They're just going to go on to these places where they are now and park there instead. And you can get a small standard family saloon, something like a Fiesta over that part of the bund very easily.
Well, wouldn't it be easier to have a bigger area up there for parking and slightly bigger than we thought? And that would, in the longer run, relieve the situation somewhat. And is it not only going to be a really big problem when, during the summer months?
The problem is with that, John, we're reduced in the area to stop the camper vans parking there.
Yes, I realise that. I saw a group of them the other day.
And that's the reason we can't make it bigger. We've got to reduce it back. It's something we're never going to be completely stopping. We're all aware of that.
Yeah.
But we can't make the area bigger. We've got to make it smaller.
Yeah. To stop the camper vans.
To stop the camper vans, and also the quantity of cars that are parking there. The erosion there is quite severe.
The erosion would be modified if we had a proper surface.
We can't put a proper surface there.
No.
We've got no way of doing that.
Yeah. Yes.
Mike, you had your...
Yes. I knowing the site, because we've dealt with it for a while now, there are areas where the bund has simply not been built big enough, or it's been worn down by vehicles going over it. And as we've done in the past, I think it's probably going to be a case of looking to see where it needs increasing and doing that pretty much piecemeal as things go on. As Steve says, people will try and use areas where they can get off the road. It's just one of those things. It will have to be addressed as we go on, and it will be a bit piecemeal. But the overall intention is to try and reduce the number of vehicles parking at the top, stop the overnight camping. One of the problems is that they will, however much space we leave, it will simply attract as many vehicles as there is space. So if we're going to try and cap it, we need to get those stones in to reduce it. Afterwards, I think we also need to bear in mind that what we do want people to do is to park down in the village and to walk up. And maybe one of the longer term plans would be to look and see whether we can develop paths coming up from there up towards the top.
I think you get problems
that
with
transfers the parking problem down to the village, which is not going to be most welcoming for the residents. I mean, I think what we should be aiming towards is a system of number reading and 1 hour strict parking. And that is automatic, that's self-enforcing. And in the long run, that will mean that that'll give people time to go to Arthur's Seat and then go away. And if you increase the throughput of the car park, then you, to some extent, solve the problem. Instead of transferring it.
I've got to say,
I think that's where we should be aiming.
Right, we can't have, it is not a car park. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
It is purely an access spot, if you like.
Yes,
using the term car park, it brings us into all sorts of other areas. Moving transport down or parking down into the village in Reynoldston will be very, very difficult and be resisted very, very strongly.
Yeah. And quite reasonably.
There isn't the area there to do it. They're already up in arms about the amount of people are parking there now. Although they're supporting it, in many ways, it's made the situation much better for us because they're far more supportive of us changing it. Virtually to a man, it's all been 100% great. I'm glad you've done this. But it's also bringing up the problems that we're going to get earlier, because people are now bypassing the boulders they're going over the top of the bund. They're parking somewhere else. There's a little quarry, just a little cut into the hill, and just 300 yards down on the right-hand side.
Yeah,
They're parking in there. They're now parking over by the post office, to the point that the people who use the post office and live there can't park when they, you know, it's around and round and round and round and round. It's where do we go next with the damn thing? But I think we have to sort of be ready to get on top of this. Otherwise, it just won't work. Okay. We'll end up having more troubles with commoners. We'll have more troubles with residents. We've almost got to try and be on top of the situation before the situation hits us, so to speak.
Okay. All right, Steve, I got two. I got Chris wants to come back in, and then Mark Child. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I would support what Steve said there. You know, it obviously it's not a car park. We are very restricted the actions that we can do and take, and we really need to make sure that whatever we do, it's with the support and the acknowledgement of the fact that effectively it is private land. It is it's the Somerset Trust and the commoners that control the management of it. And Steve has spent quite some time with the chair of Kembrian Commoners trying to agree the approach that we've made and taken. And I think if we can implement this particular scheme, what the other thing that it does is it builds trust between ourselves and the commoners about, well, look, we've got this far, we've managed to do this scheme, it's causing issues elsewhere. What can we do working together to try and control those now?
Yeah, okay. Mark?
Yeah.
Did you want to speak?
I think
he's on mute. You're on mute. Mark, can you unmute? Mark?
No.
Sorry. Right. Can you unmute your mic? I have a problem.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I've done this loads of times, and I'm getting cack-handed or something. Absolutely right. We've spent years, to my knowledge, and probably even longer than that, talking about this problem. We have a proposed action on the top, and I think we need to do that. I think we all acknowledge that it isn't going to be 100% of a solution, and it may well move some of the problem elsewhere. But that bit of land up there needs some protection, and this is an agreed scheme to try and start the process. I really think we should support it and thank everybody involved to getting us to this point. I know there might be problems along the rest of the road. There might be problems in Reynoldston, and we've got too many cars, and we want people walking there or taking some other means of getting there. But those are other problems. This addresses the one that we focused on for years. I would very much support getting this done.
Thanks, Mark. Steve, did you want to? Steve.
Hello, can you say again?
Yeah. Mark has proposed something there, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I think what Mark is saying is basically right. We've simply got to get on and get the job done.
Yeah.
I think what is showing up now is the point I was trying to get over, is that they're almost showing their hands as to what they're going to do next. So it's going to give us more time to be able to address it sooner, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Because they're actually showing us where they're going to get over the next time. Yeah. It would make sense to raise the bund in those places while we're there, if that can be achieved at the same time. Right. Okay. But there is one thing that it has shown already, is that we need to extend the bund more towards the road, so there isn't enough space.
Yeah. Okay, I got come back in a minute. Paxton, your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to say more or less what Mark has said. I know we've been at this for years, and this is the first time I've heard of any cooperation between any groups at all. So I think that's a major step forward in that sense. And I think in many respects, Mike is right in what he's saying. It almost needs to be piecemeal. Once you sorted out one area, see where the problem then arises and sort out the next area that way. And I think that's the only way you're going to get there in the end. But at least now that we got people talking together, that's got to be a big plus, and that must be able to take us somewhere in the future. So that's all I'm going to say, and I say congratulations to those people who've managed to be chatting with other people, to be honest, on this one.
Okay. So Steve, are you happy that we go along in this?
I'm very happy. You know, we've just got to make sure that we get on with it, if you see what I mean. That was the point of bringing this up, that we really do now. We've had the opportunity, if you like, given to us on a plate to actually crack on.
Yeah. Okay. So we're happy now, members, to move along with this. Yeah.
Yeah. As we said, we're going
Chris,
to.
will you come back in? Chris?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Just to perhaps round this off, then, just to say that the proposal that we've taken out to our highways colleagues. They've drawn up a plan for that, and we are awaiting costings, which will be the next big question. Actually, how much is it going to cost, and where should we get the money from?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Paul,
sorry. Yeah.
Paul, may I just ask Chris one question, because I have been asked this one, and it is very specific to what we're on about now. What happens next to the stones that are there at the moment? Do we have plans to remove them?
I suspect we will need to look at those stones and see which ones are suitable for retaining in the final scheme. Can we use them in the final scheme? Otherwise, we shall have to find some other place for them.
That's not really what I meant. What I meant was that the car park that's there now, do we have a timescale for reopening it?
No,
That's not what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So I see. So I'm awaiting the costings to see how fast we can proceed. But my preference by far is to leave the stones in situ where they are until we are ready with the design solution to. So we go up there once to move the stones, do all the works, rather than go up there twice, as it were.
So in effect, we're just going to leave the stones there until we're ready to do the work.
That's my preference. Yeah. Do
we have any powers, if you like, once this lockdown situation is released, which is coming fairly soonly, I hope? Are we going to be able to actually not keep them like this? This is the point I'm trying to make. Or are we going to have to open it up? Because there's going to be more people coming into the area. Those stones are just going to get moved anyway, because I've replaced them I don't know how many times. And I personally shifted them myself, because people have been nagging about moving them because people are moving them out of the way. So I go back up and I pull them back into line.
I've got no intention of doing anything with them at the moment. Also, we put those stones up there at the request of the police through the commoners. We were able to do that because of the emergency situation that we were in. But I can't. Bearing in mind, people don't have a right to park up there anyhow. I don't really feel it's a priority for us to do anything with them at the moment. But it's something that we would look to to work with the commoners on that.
Okay.
All right, Steve.
Yep.
Yep.
Else? Thank you. Thank you. Making progress there. And then agenda item 10, is the Gower Society issues, sent in by Gordon. Has anyone got any comments to make there? He's sent in 3 things here. He's permitted development, 28-day rule, loss of mature trees, and the 3rd item is Plan 6 and One Planet Earth development. Anyone want to raise anything there? Or this?
If I may say so, Mr. Chairman, it's a bit difficult regarding the permitted development rights down on the vial. They were there in existence.
Yeah.
I think reading between the line, Gordon is trying to advocate the City and County of Swansea putting in a blanket Article 4, which removes permitted rights, although you still would have to make an application for any further development.
How would that work?
Well, it doesn't work. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just, looking between the lines of what Gordon's actually saying is that it's a great shame and almost a tragedy that we've got somebody now opening up a fast food outlet down on one of probably the most iconic areas we've got on Gower, which previously has been unspoiled by development. You can't blame the City and County of Swansea passing it because the powers basically have an option.
Hands are tied, yeah.
Yep, completely tied. But to prevent that happening again, I think he's actually asking that we support or even approach the planning department and ask for a blanket Article 4 throughout all of the coastline of Gower.
Okay, what do people think?
If we don't do something like this, it's going to open up the doors to other people who've got some land adjoining, say, the coastal path, doing exactly the same thing.
Okay, so what? Well, all right. Thanks, Steve. What do people think? Sorry.
I would want to think about that very carefully.
Okay. All right. So, Linda, sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying. Linda, did you speak?
No.
Oh, sorry. All right. Okay. Well, John has proposed something there. Does anyone else got any views on it? John is proposing that people take this away and give it some thought.
And we get a paper, something that really discusses the implications at our next meeting. That would.
Yeah, it needs thinking through.
It needs thinking through. Yes.
Yeah. That's a fair comment. Or anyone else? Or people in favour of that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd support that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Steve. Right. Anyone else got 2 other items there? The loss of mature trees.
Is Gordon suggesting that we implement a planting program with trees to replace them? Is that what he's actually trying to say?
No. No, I think he's put it up for discussion, doesn't he, rather than anything else.
Right. But I think probably Hamish is probably the best one to be able to make a comment on this.
Yeah, I've got my hand up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon, I got a few there now. Carry on.
Yeah. So Gordon raises a few points here, and there's a few things. One is removal of mature trees. He usually requires a felling license. And I've been speaking to Gordon about the implications of felling licenses. One on Carter's Ford, where they've breached their felling license, and we're attempting to ask them to mitigate that by putting a restocking notice on them there. So that was something where we've had to take some enforcement action. Caswell, I don't think there's a felling license consequence here. Ferry Hill is complicated because of the nature of the site and whether it's a garden or not. And in Cheriton, they're working under a felling license and they're managing the woodlands in what we believe to be a reasonable way, although there are ancillary problems that go alongside that with regards to track construction. The other thing he's talking about is places that don't require felling licenses but are still removing trees, and they're removing trees outside of the within the nesting season. And we agree that's a problem. We just don't have powers to deal with that. That's something that needs to be reported to the police. And then there's the whole issue of whether or not there should be TPOs on some of the trees that have been removed, and whether people get sufficient sanction if they do remove a tree with a TPO. So there's a whole range of things there. And I guess I share his concerns about the management of large trees in the area and of removal of woodland, but it's quite complex and often quite nuanced. I don't know if that's any help at all.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Hamish. Well, so I get the same problem trying to unmute. There you are.
Oh, Paul, sorry, did you call me? Yeah, without Gordon being in the room, it's hard to read Gordon's mind.
It's hard to do that in the room.
I'm not sure I want to all the time anyway, but it might be worth letting these carry over to our next meeting so that Gordon's able to explain in more detail what he means by some of these, because I don't know what he means by the issue of the takeaway food at Russilly. I haven't visited the site and seen that. I mean, I would have concerns with McDonald's all the way along the coast, but my assumption would be that planning wouldn't allow such a thing. But I welcome the paper on that. As far as TPOs in Gower and trees and whatever, I mean, clearly we want to plant more trees generally, particularly in Gower, but everywhere. So what support is there for maintaining for applying TPOs? I don't know the basis, whether there's any different basis for applying for a TPO within an AONB than anywhere else. But I assume that they're judged independently of of whatever other planning stuff is going on around them, which is a shame in a way, because we would want to try and enhance a Gower by preserving more, by having more powers to preserve the trees and hedges and other things. I don't know do we have a ban? Is there any way of having a ban of cutting trees down in the nesting season? I mean, that would affect the income of a large number of tree surgeons, I guess. But we shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a professional thing of a tree surgeon to fell a tree during the nesting season. I don't know whether there's any licensing or powers like that involved. But I would support a discussion on how we improve the protection of our trees in Gower.
Thank you. Paxton.
Thank you, Chairman. I think basically the point that Gordon is getting at in that item 2 basically is that we need to be moving faster and more quickly where we see that felling being done indiscriminately to get it stopped. And I think that's the problem as much as anything else. Appreciate what Mark is saying about planting trees as well, and I'm not going to argue that, but the problem there on number 2 seems to be the fact that trees are being cut down, I wouldn't say indiscriminately, but certainly in various areas, and we need to stop it far sooner than we are. And I know Hamish has said with Carter's Ford, for example, that you're looking to try and get them to reinstate trees. I'm not quite sure you force them to do that at the end of the day, Hamish. And of course, it's very much a case of prevention is better than cure.
Or if you will, it's not necessary. Yeah, I agree. It is better that we stop people undertaking illegal felling early on. It is difficult to get them to replace trees because obviously the trees have taken a long time to grow to that size. But certainly in Carter's Ford, they were given a felling license and they've gone beyond what they were allowed to do, and we're trying to put that one right by asking them to restock or to allow regeneration. It looks a mess now. Hopefully, it will recover. Some of the trees were developed on what were old fields and old field boundaries, and I think the landowner felt it was legitimate to return those back to field areas, whereas we had a slightly different idea on that. So it's as much as anything the way he conducted the felling, not the actual density, not the numbers of trees he removed.
I get you. Okay. Right. Next one is Paul Thornton. Paul.
Yeah. Sorry, just unmuting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to just voice my opinion that it's as important to manage the trees and woodlands that we've got now as it is to think about planting trees en masse. And also a strange thing for a Wildlife Trust employee to say, but it's not always a bad thing to be felling trees during bird nesting season. Yeah, if the correct assessments are done, and when it comes to working, we do a lot of our work with at the moment, we're looking at ash dieback, and we're thinking about those trees bat roost potential and things like that. And your bat method statement will often have you working within the bird nesting season.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Paul. Mark, you had your hand up still, or did you? No?
No.
Your hand is still up, Mark. Right. Okay, cheers. Anyone else wish to speak? No? There's been a couple of suggestions there, well, both of them really, about bringing forward some discussion on it. Hopefully by the next time we meet. What about item 3 there then, about the One Planet Earth? That is a current planning application that is still under consideration. Anyone got any views?
I think this is quite a difficult one, particularly as it's still a current application.
Yeah, exactly. I read it all up over the weekend, yeah.
You know, I don't know what to say about this one, really. You know, my own opinion from a farming background, it's not sustainable. But that's not really my position to say.
Yeah. Perhaps it's worth waiting to see what planning department's got to say to it, and taking into account what you just said, Steve.
You know, it's certainly a very difficult one to actually make a comment on, because we can't support it, we can't oppose it really at this particular stage.
Sorry, you can make your comments on the planning website. Sorry, Mike, you had your hand up there?
Yes, it was just a quick comment that this one is still current. You know, as Steve's just said, it's not been decided yet, but it is as a concept, it fits within the LDP at the moment, simply because it's part of the planning legislation. So it isn't a straightforward, simple one. It is, I think, worth just flagging up to the partnership that the One Planet legislation does exist within planning. They are, provided they're following the guidance, within their rights to do that.
Oh, of course. Yeah. All right. Anyone else got a thing to say on that? Anyone? No? Sure. Right. Okay, well, finally then, item 11 is the COVID-19 restrictions on visitor behaviour. Where is James? Is he here? And Roger? No? Neither.
Can I simply say that I was on the phone at the start of the meeting to Roger. He hasn't been able to log in, so I'm afraid I sort of can't help there, I'm afraid.
Well, in that case, we've nothing to discuss.
One of the issues that I know both Roger and James wanted to raise was the issue of the opening of car parks and the not opening of public toilets and the number of visitors. I think the best thing I can say at the moment is that's a very live issue at the moment. We have had the council opening a number of toilets. The ones at Portainen, I think, are still under discussion, and I think the Ricili ones are still sort of, how can I say then, they're probably not at the discussion stage at the moment. It has been flagged as an issue,
Yeah.
but there has been no decision at the moment. I think there are a lot of practical issues to discuss internally before there's any decision there. I know that I'm on a group that discusses the reopening and the lifting of closures at the moment. We know that there's another step forward on the 6th of July. Hopefully we'll have some more clear steps in front of us before we get there. But at the moment, I think things are still being discussed. It's still not clear at the moment. I think that's simply where we are.
Yeah, quite true, Mark. I'll bring you in now, Mark. Yeah, since this was proposed and put on the agenda, some things have moved on. And it seems to me that some of the things that have been discussed, are wanting to be discussed here, are joint approaches rather than the AONB, us as a partnership, is police and everyone else. Mark, do you want to come in now?
Yes, and clearly there are many different factors involved here, but I was quite appalled by some of the behaviours that we've seen recently, either by the messes left on the beach at Langland or elsewhere, about what's happening outside places selling beer for takeaway, but and people are going less than 50 yards away and having several and not having any toilets to use, but finding somewhere to use. It's the people's behaviour when they come to Gower we need some kind of control, policing, whatever. I would like us to say that we really think it's very important that people still abide by behaviour rules of distancing and cleaning and all that kind of stuff. That they listen to the government's advice on travel. And that they respect the places that they go to, because when they don't, it just destroys them. It makes them look awful, and somebody has to go and clean it up. We need the police to be much stronger in enforcing what the current regulations are and preventing some of this happening in the first place. And I think the police are just sort of, by and large, wash their hands of it, to be honest. I know not having toilets open is a problem, but opening toilets is also a problem. There are no guidances from the Welsh Government or UK Government on public toilets. There are evidently places where the virus can survive for quite some time, and so there are places where you are likely to be infected. Than are much more likely to be infected than other places, which makes them difficult to open. Anyway, but I think we've done the right thing as the council has started opening them. We've done the right thing as far as car parks going, because people would have driven down to whatever beach it was anyway and parked somewhere. But I do think I think we need to say to the police and the council that we want them to encourage or use enforcement where necessary, encourage people to abide by the rules and use enforcement where necessary, because otherwise they're creating damage by illegal camping, dumping rubbish, and worse all over Gower.
Thank you, Mark. Linda?
I was just going to say, we've had so much trouble in Southgate with people parking all over the place, blocking residents in, parking on steep bends and the most dangerous of places. The National Trust has been forced to open their car park at the end again, even though I know it's not national policy yet. It was just to relieve all the pressure on the residents. I don't know why everybody seems to want to go to just a handful of places when there are so many places they could go for a walk and walk their dogs. But I don't know.
Yep.
That's where we are.
I have to say, Linda, that's exactly the same problems they're having up on top of Kevin Bryn.
Yeah.
We're that an awful lot longer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just absolutely frustrated.
Well, yes, people.
Sorry. Mike, you had your hand up there?
Yes, I think there's been a number of surveys and things done around the English national parks who've had the resources to do survey work very quickly. The visitors that are coming out are not, should we say, the normal visitors. They're people who have maybe never been out to these places before. Their knowledge of these places is very small, very limited. The only places that they are aware that they can go in many cases are the real honey spots. They're the only ones they've heard of. They get there, and for many of them, it's the first time they've been. They don't really know what to expect. If I was being charitable, I would say they don't really know what sort of behaviour is acceptable in some instances. I think for others, they've come out and they are struggling to do something. They've, in many cases, travelled a fair distance. They're not prepared to then turn around and go away again. They're simply going to get there and go and do something. They have very few options when they get there. And I think that the results of the behaviour and the numbers that we're seeing simply reflect that. There are a lot of people out who don't know the areas, don't really know what to do, but have come out anyway. It's a very difficult situation for the police simply because the numbers. I know, as I say, I'm on a group that discusses the issues at Rosilly, partly because we were discussing the sunflower issues, but the number of visitors they were getting meant that it was very, very difficult for the police with limited numbers to do very much about it. And I would simply say that that's the same just about everywhere on Gower, and to be honest, elsewhere as well.
True. Right, thanks. Mark, your hand still up. Did you want to come back in? No? Okay, all right. So that's anyone else wish to speak then? No? Okay, thank you all. Well, that concludes our agenda. And we'll let you know when the next meeting is, because we date on that.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate your contribution. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
Cheers, Paul.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Hello.